Um, I think we're going to have a very interesting, not a whole lot. Me and my wife are going to go out and probably spend some Bitcoin money and just take it easy and relax. Today is Friday. Happy Friday to all of you guys. Tonight is what we call movie night in the Henry household, where we stuff our faces with frozen yogurt, and we have our collection of healthy snacks, if there is such a thing. We put together as good as possible, as good as we can, some healthy snacks and things to chomp on while we're watching some Amazon original movies that they got out. I think we're currently looking at, what are we looking at now? I can't remember the name of it. It's a British type of independent film about a congressman or a senator who has a homosexual relationship with someone else, and there's a big scandal. Something like I think it's called a British Scandal or something like that. It's really funny. Anyway, we're gonna watch that and see how many series it has, and then we'll move on to something else. But anyway, that's what's happening this evening. Not a whole lot. But this, you may ask yourself, who is this crazy guy talking about weird Amazon original movies and such? My name is Monty Henry, owner of DPO Surveillance Equipment. We're a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products. We have 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support. We have the largest inventory of items that not only can you buy, but you can rent or lay away as well. We have a huge and growing collection of articles and podcasts and blogs and demonstration videos showing our state-of-the-art, law enforcement grade surveillance and security products. Speaking of such, last night I added a whole collection of new surveillance hidden cameras. They're called nanny cameras. And of course they're disguised into everything imaginable. Alarm clock radios, oscillating fans, power strips for outdoors, smoke detectors. What I really think is unique about these particular items, and the industry has been waiting for this solution for a long time, and now we finally have it available to you. Hello? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me see it. Yeah, we got briefly interrupted there. But yeah, what makes these products really unique is that they're cloud-based, what we call cloud-based. And that simply implies that instead of using your computer to store the video, because typically when you use your own computer, something could happen to your computer. Someone could go onto the computer, cut it on, cut it off, or do something to disrupt, or just try to find out, basically what's happening with the video, or just start poking around and discover things. So we've eliminated that by making sure that this cloud-based solution stores your video footage into the cloud. So you don't have to worry so much about someone, again, discovering the video and the information that you're recording, whether it's at home or on the job or whatever, because the video is recorded into the cloud, and you access it the same way. You access live video, for instance, by logging into your smartphone, iPad, laptop, whatever you're using. You log into our application using those devices, and you get a chance to see your live video. You can affect the recording and the playback and all that stuff through the app. The major difference is, again, you don't have to worry about relying upon your computer and it staying on and someone not tampering with it and all of that. So we've eliminated that. So this is a big breakthrough, basically, in the industry. True cloud-based video storage is actually what we're referring to. We take care of the storage requirements and all of that. You just choose the plan that fits your budget in terms of getting the amount of space that you require for the amount of activity that you expect. And we can help you determine that, make that determination. Other than that, so go to the website when you get a chance, check it out. Let me know what you think. Other than that, we've optimized the website or redesigned it and optimized it for mobile. So the mobile experience should be very, very good for you guys. Easy, fast to navigate and all that on the internet. So you guys can check out the products, read the articles, peruse through the website without any issues. So I think that's going to be a much more pleasurable experience. Our top-notch developers working on integrating Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin through our shopping cart. So we can bypass the MasterCards and the Visas and the big banks who typically get in the way and charge all sorts of exorbitant fees for nothing when it costs basically nothing to move money around. When someone buys something and wants to send money back and forth, that actual process really is overpriced. And again, the banks and the credit card companies are just taking advantage and raping us all. And we have a lot of overhead. And a lot of consumers don't realize that there's significant overhead associated with doing business with MasterCard and Visa and American Express. But there is. There's about $70 billion that comes out of all of our pockets every year because people don't know any better and they refuse to give up that cozy relationship, again, with MasterCard and Visa and American Express. And some stupid consumers point out the idea that they're getting rewards points. They get 1 to 3% rewards points as a result of using those cards, not realizing that the industry takes that away from you immediately when we have exorbitant costs. In other words, we have to make up for all the money that they're taking out of our pockets. So that has to come from somewhere. And that usually comes in additional overhead, either shipping, just pricing it into the products and the services or something. But if we keep that money in our pockets as retailers and merchants, then that means we can hire more people, we can hire your friends, relatives, or you, and we can do more marketing and advertising. We can put more money into our operations. So a lot of businesses wouldn't go out of business and they would thrive more efficiently if it weren't for the exorbitant costs put upon us by the credit card issuers and the banks and the processors and all of the blood-sucking rent seekers that take money out of our pockets. So make sure you guys take advantage of what Bitcoin and the blockchain and other cryptos has to offer. Other than that, let me see what else. For your business entrepreneurs, just make sure that when you get up in the morning, you take a look at what's happening in the financial markets. Hopefully, try to emulate someone very successful that could give you an idea of how to save time, make money, or something more efficiently or effectively, like Warren Buffett. Who else? The guy who runs Fox, 20th Century Fox, Rupert Murdoch. He gets 4 or 5 newspapers and magazines and such in front of him every day in the morning, and he peruses them, looking at the headlines, reading the articles, and making sure that he understands what's going on. It helps him plan his day when you know what's going on in your particular market segment where you operate, in the country where you operate in, and all that. So it helps you make informed decisions by reading a lot. Be a voracious reader, especially of things related to money and finances. It doesn't hurt to be financially illiterate. Now, moving on to today's topic. What is today's topic? Let's see. It's a good question. Today's topic, what does knee surgery cost? Few know, and that's a problem. Again, today's topic is, what does knee surgery cost? Few know, and that's a problem. Okay, again, I want to put this in proper context, mainly because this hits home with me and my wife, because we were members of Kaiser Permanente. It's a large for-profit hospital chain corporation that for 20 years provided our health care for us. And they did an okay job. And I have to say okay because it wasn't without incident, believe me. There were some situations where things really got mixed up over there at Kaiser Permanente. But overall, I think they tried to do a good job. But the problem was this. After being with them for 20 years and practicing and taking their advice and doing preventative checkups and eating right and exercising right, we found that we weren't getting the any incentive. There was no incentive, basically, for following their advice. In other words, when we reduced our visits to the hospital because we were healthy, that meant that the hospital actually should have been making more money, right? We should have been saving money, and we shouldn't have been paying, rather, the exorbitant costs that the sick people, the sick customers and patients were paying. In other words, if I stay out of your hospital, if I stay out of your doctor's offices, my premiums, just like in the auto insurance business, my premiums should reflect that. There's no way possible I should be paying the same exorbitant costs, all things being equal, as someone who has diabetes and overweight and refuses to stop smoking and drinking alcohol every day, okay? To me, that didn't make sense. So, after pleading with Kaiser year after year in terms of them reducing our premiums and the cost of our health care with that corporation, they insisted upon raising the rates, raising the premiums every single year automatically, pretty much. So we got more costs. We kept changing plans to get plans with higher deductibles and such. I think there were lower premiums, higher deductibles. But after so much of that, we just pretty much gave up. Because at some point we would have been paying like a $10,000 deductible or some ridiculous amount just to get lower premiums. But anyway, we pleaded with them. They wouldn't make any changes. They wouldn't acknowledge the fact that we are not visiting the hospital as much, that our tests and checkups and follow-ups were coming back with very good results. EKGs indicated that heart rates were very, very low. Blood pressure levels very low. All these things were coming in very good, even by their own standards. But they wanted to continue to charge us more money. Again, as if we were unhealthy. So we dropped it. We fired Kaiser Permanente probably 10 years ago or something. And we moved on. And we pocketed the savings. We put the savings into an HSA account. And now we pay out of pocket for what we need, when we need it. Anyway, let me see. I better get specifically to that article now that I framed that. The reason why I had to say all that is because there's a problem in the healthcare industry. In Gunther, there's a hospital chain consisting of probably 6 particular hospitals. For nearly a decade, it's called Gunderson Health Systems Hospital in La Crosse, Wisconsin, boosted the price of knee replacement surgery an average of 3% a year. By 2016, the average list price was more than $50,000, including the surgeon and anesthesiologist. Now, remember that figure, over $50,000 for knee surgery, because at the end of this article, or subsequently part way through it, we're going to find out that Gunther ended up finding out that that $50,000 knee replacement surgery actually only cost the hospital $8,700. Okay, I'll skip down to that paragraph. Armed with the new information, Gunderson was able to pinpoint waste, and it set out to cut inefficiencies and lower costs. Changes to the process mean the knee surgery now costs the hospital an average of $8,700 at most to perform, and this is an 18% savings. So I jumped, extensively through this article just to get that, just to make that point for you guys. $50,000 knee surgery somehow becomes an $8,700 knee surgery. Now I'll give you another practical example, because I'm not just here just to play around on the internet. I want you guys to know that this has real world implications, knowing the cost that you pay for things. Me and my wife had a colonoscopy probably 7 years ago, and we initially received a bill I received a bill for $5,000, for instance. My bill, which was supposed to be $5,000, was subsequently dropped to $500. Now, what happened was the hospital initially sent me a copy of the same bill that the insurance company would get. And that was the $5,000 bill. In other words, if the insurance company paid the bill, it would be $5,000. But since I didn't have insurance, I didn't use it, rather. I think I didn't have it at the time because I dropped my insurance, right? So I paid $500. That's how much my bill was actually for me. And this just goes to show a lot of times what the insurance company gets, again, is totally different from what the actual costs are if you were to pay out of your pocket. And a lot of patients are finding out that even if you do have insurance, you should find out what the actual costs are for procedures and operations, because you may not want to use your insurance. You may just decide to pay out of your pocket, and that way you don't have to pay that significantly high deductible. As a lot of people are finding out, you can save a ton of money when you pay cash as compared to using the insurance. Save the insurance for those major emergencies or whatever, major procedures and operations, as compared to the ones that you can actually pay out of your pocket. So this was a valuable lesson that we learned firsthand with insurance, and when to pay out of your pocket and when not to. But we save a lot of money actually, because we put the cost savings, the premium payments that normally went to Kaiser, we put them in HSA accounts, and we have a little debit card, and we use that card at health food stores and different medical facilities, optometrists, whatever. That's where we use those cards, and we save a lot of money, mainly because we are able to invest a lot of the money that we save. And when you invest smartly and wisely, you make more money, and therefore you have more money to do things with. See, what you guys don't understand is when you have more money in your own pocket and you leverage growing that money, now you get a chance to do a lot more. But when you're constantly paying out, well, of course, the only solution is to get a job that produces enough money to cover up all the areas where you're wasting money. That's why people work till they're 40, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, because they're not identifying where the actual costs are. Anyway, getting back to Gunderson Health Systems, located in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Even as administrators raised the price, they had no real idea what it cost to perform the surgery, the most common for hospitals and in the U.S. outside of those related to childbirth. They set a price using a combination of educated guesswork and a canny assessment of market opportunity. Prompted by rumblings from Medicare and private insurance over potential charges to payments, Gunderson decided to nail down the numbers. During an 18-month review, an efficiency expert trailed doctors and nurses to record every minute of activity and note instruments, resources, and medicines used. The hospital tallied the time nurses spent wheeling around VCR cards, a mismatch of available post-surgery beds, unnecessarily costly bone cement, and delays dispatching physical therapists to get patients moving. Gunther's 18-month review pointed out a number of different things. They mentioned bone cement. Gunther was paying 50% more for pre-mixed bone cement with antibiotics in it. That was a brand name bone cement, and they realized that they didn't need a brand name bone cement during operations for knee surgery. They only needed a generic version, which they could make on the spot when they actually needed it. So they saved 50% right there. So that was a big savings. This dynamic is a driving force in the explosion of healthcare spending in the United States, which will soon reach close to 20% of GDP. Americans spend more per capita on healthcare than any other developed nation, even though they aren't buying more healthcare overall. The rise in hospital prices has outpaced economy-wide inflation for decades. When price isn't tightly linked to cost, that is a sign that the market isn't competitive, said Harvard economist Lee Daphne. 20% of GDP is insane. Americans are paying way too much for health care just to end up with an epidemic of diabetes and obesity. This doesn't make a lot of sense. There was a young lady who worked for Gunderson, and her name was Lisa Wide. In 2013, Lisa Wide, W-I-E-D, who then oversaw Gunderson's orthopedic department, she had stumbled across an initiative on the internet by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, a Boston-based health quality nonprofit, to dig into hospital joint replacement costs. So that's hospital joint replacement costs. It hit home, Ms. White said, who previously worked in manufacturing, an industry that more scrupulously tracks its costs. So Ms. White had a background working with the manufacturing industry, so she sought to apply some of the same techniques for tracking costs, and she aspired from working in the orthopedic department, or overseeing the orthopedic department, to becoming VP of operations for Gunderson Health Systems. That's how important that she became, as she identified and helped save that nonprofit money. Now, speaking of nonprofits, I got to tell you guys, when you're a nonprofit, you're not beholden to shareholders. You're basically trying to save money and put that income, the additional income, back into operations. So this is what happened with Gunderson. They didn't have to worry about appeasing shareholders like for-profit organizations, who are indeed beholden to shareholders. And when you have a for-profit situation, I have to point out that you typically have to worry about quarterly earnings results and meeting the bottom line numbers and all that. And there's a lot less emphasis put on returning value to patients as compared to shareholders. Now, the good thing about nonprofits, again, is they don't necessarily have to worry about some idiot organization or some idiot corporation sending their paid goons in there to try and get you to use their expensive name brand or supposedly name brand products and such that are significantly overpriced, that aren't going to do anything but enrich the pockets of the corporations that sent them there. In other words, if there's a certain procedure where you can get done and save money with generic parts and parts that are just as good, and what's going to happen is these corporations make sure that you use their brand name equipment and products, which are going to indeed, sorry about that noise, which are indeed going to drive up the cost. Okay, so that's a conflict of interest. Besides, the hospitals typically, or the doctors in the hospitals, are typically going to be bribed pretty much by incentives from these corporations who have things to sell and things that they want to make money off of. So that's where you got to be careful, because the dinners and the airplane flights and the hotel stays and all these things, they don't necessarily give doctors the freedom of just doing patient care without considering who's ultimately going to pay for dinner and the airline travel and all these significant perks, speaking engagements that are thrown at them. So nonprofits have less involvement in those areas as compared to for-profit. So that's a major distinction. So we need to get for-profit organizations into doing and working like Gunderson in terms of just worrying about saving money and putting that money back into patient care. Now, another thing that Gunderson didn't mention, and I'll let you guys read the article, they didn't mention how they're providing incentive to patients to maintain their health care after the fact. In other words, after you get out of the hospital, you want to make sure that the patients are following up and reporting their results, and then also it doesn't hurt to get their feedback. I was using a county facility out here in Camarillo, California, very top-notch facility by most standards, and I know something about standards again because I used to spend a lot of money with Kaiser and some of the for-profit organizations. But yeah, Gunderson really did a very good job, but I think follow-up and surveys, quality of life surveys, that also tells you a great deal about how patients' lives are affected by good policies and procedures once they're implemented correctly. Because everything can't be just measured in dollars. Some things have to be measured in terms of how often are you staying out of how much are you staying out of the hospital now, as compared to when you were going in the hospital 3 times a month. You know, am I staying out of the hospital? So I need to be rewarded again for staying out of the hospital. And you can reward patients in different ways. Reduced cost of gym memberships, rebates or discounts on annual premiums or monthly premiums or something. All these are very good ways to give people incentive to stay healthy, eat right, exercise, and such. And it doesn't hurt. Just like automobile insurance, basically. You know, sorry for that noise. So, what else we have? One of the biggest revelations came after patients left surgery. Kendra Reynolds, her name is Kendra Reynolds, Gunderson's inpatient orthopedic director, and nurse Beth Craig saw an early map of results dotted with storm clouds to indicate where the analysis identified potential problems. It looked like a thunderstorm, said Ms. Craig, a clinical nurse leader for Gunderson. On busy days, the hospital had no available beds for knee replacement patients after surgery. Patients with nowhere to go remained in temporary post-surgical units for as long as 24 hours, prolonging their recovery. The backlog created confusion among physical therapists who waited to start recovery until patients transferred to the hospital's orthopedic unit. So, she's pointing out that the procedures overall lacked a lot of coordination. When people got out of surgery, they needed to go right into recovery departments and physical therapy so that they can get out of the hospital as soon as possible. One individual who had been to that hospital previously, years earlier, he had knee surgery done on the opposite knee, and he was able to get out of the hospital one day earlier as compared to the time before when he was in there. Let's see, Mr. Spolum? Mr. Spolum, who had tossed hay bales at his hobby farm with his grandchildren the week before surgery, returned home the next day. His stay at the hospital was a full day shorter than his last visit to Gunderson in August 2016, when the same surgeon replaced his other knee, said Sherry Spolum, his wife. That was just fine with him. He wanted to get home, she said. So, they improved his outcome dramatically, and he was able to get home earlier. And then also, an employer group in Madison, Wisconsin, presented Gunderson with another option: cut the prices it charges patients. As Gunderson was concluding its cost evaluations, the group known as the Alliance approached him with an ultimatum. Hospitals elsewhere in Wisconsin with good quality results had cut knee replacement costs by more than 20% on average to win their business. The employer group said Gunderson could do the same or risk losing patients. This employer group was called the Alliance. The Alliance entered La Crosse only the year before, but its foothold was growing. The employer group represents 5,600 people in La Crosse and 88,000 people across three states. So this was a big opportunity, basically, for Gunderson to win the business of Alliance with approximately 88,000 new patients. They had a number they were focused on, said Susan Rocholz, Director of Managed Care for the Gunderson Health System. We had to figure out if we could live with that. So anyway, Gunderson pursued that contract, won the contract, reduced costs, saved a lot of money. It's the bottom line. Now, before I forget, some of you may not even have any idea that you could actually compare costs now a little bit more effectively when it comes to medical treatment and procedures. There's an operation called hospitalcompare.hhs.gov. There's Leapfrog, Leap Frog, Frog, group.org. Again, the name of that first one was hospitalcompare.hhs.gov. And then even healthcarebluebook.com is going to be another resource. Changehealthcare.com, CHANGE, changehealthcare.com, and newchoicehealth.com, and outofpocket.com, including pricedoc.com. That's pricedoc.com. A lot of these are going to be able to serve as very good starting points, and I'll include this with the article, these other places where you can compare and get an idea of how people are saving money and finding out what procedures and operations actually cost as compared to what you're billed for. What you're billed for and what your costs are two totally different things. So you guys are paying way too much, and you're spending a lot of money, and you're working your butts off for these jobs when you don't need to work as hard and as long, because obviously you don't need as much money as you think you need, but you're actually wasting money, and your money's not growing, and you're not making your money work for you. You're working too hard for your money. So basically, I'm going to wrap up this session here. I'm going to conclude this with an individual by the name of Jeff Weiser, co-founder of this particular company. Jeff Weiser said his company tracks its own costs in minute detail, down to the expense for fire extinguishers, toilet accessories, and temporary telephones it would need to compete for jobs, such as a recent one to remodel a Minnesota high school. Weiser uses software to track labor, solicit competing bids from subcontractors, and itemize supplies. There's no reason they can't run a business like we do, said Mr. Weiser. Mr. Weiser was referring to Gunderson Health Systems. Jeff Weiser runs Weiser Brothers, a general contractor nearby in La Crescent, Minnesota, that is part of the alliance. The agreement with Gunderson will reduce the price of knee surgery for its employees. It expects the discount to be greater than 30% off the list price. Anyway, Jeff Weiser, again, runs Weiser Brothers, and Jeff Weiser is telling you, most other companies track cost and significant detail. QuickBooks, Peachtree, other accounting software programs allow you to track these costs. So anyway, you guys keep your eyes and ears open. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good day. Thanks. Take care. Bye.